Imagine waking up one morning and your neighbor's shop is still closed. That never happens. You knock on the door, no answer. You knock again, still nothing. And something deep inside you, something you can't quite explain, tells you that something is very, very wrong. This is exactly what happened on the morning of July 1st, 2018, in a quiet neighborhood called Burari in North Delhi, India. And what was found behind that door would shock the entire world. The Chundawat family was everything a family should be. 3 generations living under one roof. A grandmother, her children, their spouses, and their kids. 11 people in total, ranging in age from 15 to 77. They ran a small grocery shop on the ground floor of their building. Modest, honest work. Neighbors described them as warm, helpful, and deeply respectful. If someone came to their shop without money, they were still given what they needed. No questions asked. They did not even sell cigarettes. That's how principled they were. From the outside, they were the kind of family everyone respected. The kind of family you'd want living next to you. But behind closed doors, something else entirely was taking place. Something that had been quietly growing for 11 years. It started with a death. In 2006, the head of the Chundawat family, a man named Bhupal Singh, passed away from natural causes. It was a painful loss, as any father's death would be. But for one member of the family, the grief went somewhere else entirely. His son, Lalit, met with a serious accident shortly after and lost his voice completely. For months, he could not speak. And then, suddenly, he could again. But when Lalit began to speak, he said something that would change everything. He told his family that his father's spirit had entered him, that Bhupal Singh, the man they had just buried, was communicating through Lalit's body, guiding him, speaking to him, and through him, speaking to the entire family. At first, perhaps they dismissed it. Grief does strange things to people. But Lalit kept talking, and what he said began to feel real to them. He told them their father had instructions, a way of life the family must follow, a path that would protect them, bless them, and lead them towards something greater. And so, they listened. Since 2007, Lalit, along with 2 young women in the family, Priyanka and Neetu, began maintaining diaries. Not 1, 11. The first entry was dated 2007. The last one was written just 1 day before their deaths in 2018. 11 years of entries. Page after page, filled with detailed instructions supposedly dictated by the spirit of their dead father. Instructions about how to pray, how to behave, how to conduct rituals, and eventually how to perform something called Bod Tapasya, a ritual meant to replicate the hanging roots of a banyan tree, one of the most sacred symbols in Hindu mythology. The ritual was elaborately described in the diaries. It involved creating symbolic representations of the hanging roots of a banyan tree. And the family believed that if they performed this ritual perfectly, something miraculous would happen. They would be protected, blessed, saved. They were not preparing to die. They were preparing to be transformed. Now, here is what makes this case so deeply disturbing. The Chundawat family was known for their sociability and active participation in their community. They attended events, they interacted with neighbors, their children went to school and were described as bright and cheerful. Nobody suspected anything. Not a single person outside that house knew what was happening inside it. For 11 years, this family lived a double life, normal and warm on the outside, and behind closed doors, completely controlled by a set of invisible instructions written in 11 secret diaries. This is what psychologists call a shared delusion, or more specifically, shared psychotic disorder. It is a rare condition where one person's false belief becomes so powerful, so consuming, that the people around them begin to accept it as their own reality. Lalit did not force anyone. He did not threaten anyone. He simply believed with absolute certainty, and that certainty spread. Now, let's come back to the morning of July 1st, 2018. It was just after 5:30 a.m. when a milk delivery truck stopped in front of the Chundawat shop. Every morning, someone from the family would come down to collect the delivery, but today, the metal grate was still closed and bolted. That was strange. The driver waited, then left. At around 7:15 a.m., a neighbor named Gurcharan Singh, who regularly went on morning walks with one of the family members, came to check on them. Lalit hadn't shown up for their walk. Gurcharan approached the house and knocked. Silence. He knocked again. Nothing. He pushed the door open, and then he saw it. The constable from the Burari police arrived within 15 minutes. He pushed through the growing crowd outside, braced himself, and stepped into the apartment. He took measured steps up to the first level. At the top of the stairs, he froze. In all his years with the police, he had never seen anything this gruesome. He would later tell a reporter that he could only look at the scene for 10 seconds. 10 people were found hanging in the courtyard of the house, all close to each other. They were blindfolded and their mouths were taped. Their faces were wrapped almost entirely, ears plugged with cotton, mouths taped, hands tied behind their backs. There were 5 stools, probably shared by the 10 members. Their faces were covered with cloth pieces from a single bedsheet. In another room lay the family's grandmother, Narayani Devi, 77 years old. She was not hanging like the others. She had marks on her neck from a belt. She had been strangled. The room was completely still, cold, like the entire house had been holding its breath. When the investigation began, police immediately noticed something strange. There were no signs of struggle, no overturned furniture, no broken locks. No screams had been reported by neighbors. Nothing that suggested this was a crime committed against the family. It was as if they had done it themselves. And then came the diaries. Police found 11 diaries in the house. The Joint Commissioner of Police stated, "The handwritten notes detailing how hands and legs were tied were quite similar to the manner in which the bodies were found. The diaries were exhaustive, and investigators spent significant time studying them. The diary stated that the elderly woman could not stand and hence should be lying on the bed, which was consistent with her being found in the other room. Every detail in those diaries matched the scene exactly. This had all been planned, written down, rehearsed for years. But here is perhaps the most chilling detail of the entire case. One entry in the diaries read, "Everyone will tie their own hands, and when the ritual is done, everyone will help each other untie their hands." Read that again. They were going to untie each other. They were not planning to die. They genuinely believed that at the final moment, at the very peak of the ritual, something would happen. Something divine. Something that would prove everything Lalit had told them was real. They trusted it completely. One family member, Bhuvnesh, had made efforts to release his bound hands, as evident from the marks on his fingers. Perhaps at the last moment, he realized, but by then, it was too late. The official conclusion of the investigation was mass suicide, driven by shared psychotic disorder. But not everyone accepted it. The only surviving member of the Chundawat family, Dinesh, was dissatisfied with the investigation. He believed this was a planned murder, not a suicide. He argued that if Lalit and his wife had orchestrated this, their hands should have been free, not tied like the others. That question remains unanswered. Was Lalit a man who genuinely lost his mind and took his entire family with him? Or was there something else? Nobody knows for certain, and perhaps nobody ever will. Today, 7 years later, the building still stands in Burari. Coaching centers and shops operate nearby as usual, but the building still draws quiet glances from passers-by. Sometimes students stop in front of it, speak in whispers, get scared, and then turn away. The family's neighbors still remember them, still speak about them with sadness, not fear. They were bright children. They were good people. They were a family who loved each other. And that is perhaps the most heartbreaking part of this entire story. They didn't die because they were weak or foolish or broken. They died because they trusted completely, unconditionally. They died because of love, a love so strong it made them follow someone they believed was guided by their own father, their own family, from beyond the grave. That kind of love doesn't make you a fool. It makes you human. And that is what the Burari case forces us to confront. Not just the horror of what happened, but the truth underneath it. That the human mind, even a healthy, loving, ordinary mind, can be slowly reshaped by grief, by trust, by belief, by a voice that speaks with just enough certainty to make you stop questioning. We all have people we trust completely. We all have moments when we choose faith over logic. The Chundawat family was not so different from any of us. And maybe that is the most disturbing thing of all, because it forces us to ask ourselves a question we'd rather not answer. How far would you follow someone you truly believed? A belief, a voice, an idea that grows quietly in the dark. And by the time you realize what it has become, there is no way back.